What's good, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Land Grant Podcast Network's I-80 Football Show. As always, I'm your host, Jordan. I'm here with my co-host, Dante.
Yes, sir. How you doing, man?
I'm all right. Um, I feel like I'm trying to fight off getting sick.
Uh-oh.
Uh, but
No, no.
yeah, I feel like it's hard not to get sick occasionally in New York because of all the walking. Like you're not
Fair.
going in and out of your car, and the temperature change from like the cold to the subway to out, it has to mess up your body. But
Yeah.
honestly, I'm all right. I'm getting really close to my holiday break. One of the few benefits of working in higher education, get
Mm-hmm.
a decent amount of time off, so get to rest and relax. I got 7 days left at work, I guess. 2 days this week, five next week. But
Nice.
three of those days are work from home. I'm not counting. I'm not keeping track. Um, it's funny. I'm actually not. I just did that in my head because it's really not that hard. You work 5 days a week, but yeah. So I'm all right. How you living?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I don't think we looked at the score or the game prediction sheet last week. Before rivalry week or after.
It's
And I
filled out. Did you
yeah,
do it?
I didn't look at it. Yeah, no, I didn't do it. But
We didn't talk about it.
no, I don't think so. But I just looked at it now and like I'm doing pretty good.
No, we did. We did talk about it because I mentioned that we would do bowl games.
Oh yeah.
Maybe we didn't. I don't know. I
I
thought
don't
we
know.
said
Maybe
that,
I don't know.
but
Maybe so. And
yeah.
I'm just forgetting. But
Well, if we didn't, so everyone knows, at the end of the regular season, and we maybe we didn't look at it because we didn't put our prediction for the championship game, although we both picked
yeah,
Oregon. I'll
yeah.
just add that we both picked Oregon. So Dante at the end of the regular season plus the championship game went 91-35, and I went 87-39. So
Yes, sir. I
four
finally
games
won
off.
one, y'all. I
Yeah,
finally won one.
yeah. 3 years in, 3 years in, something like that. Um,
yeah. After a 3 year losing streak, I finally turned one around.
Damn, Dante, you telling me you can lose 3 times and you don't have to lose the fourth time in the biggest upset of Ohio State's history? Oh, wrong topic. My bad. Thought that's what we were talking about. I didn't. I
No,
thought
no,
once you
no,
lost 3 times, you just had to keep losing. You know what I mean? You just had to lose again and
no,
again. Uh,
no, no. You don't have to, but yeah, that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
that's just some people. One
Yeah,
person in particular. That's how they view it. I got you. I'm glad. I'm
I
glad. I'm
wouldn't say
glad we
just one person. I wouldn't just
learned.
say one person. There's a few of those coaches that's lost it the other way 4, 5, 6 times in a row. You know, so
Hate it here. We will not talk about Ohio State a lot today, but it's funny. I'm just like I'm in this place where um, it's hard to say depressed because like I try not to let sports like affect my life that much,
hmm
but like in the context of sports, not my regular life, just in the context of sports, my fandom is like very depressing right now because it's just like I'm trying to like think about the playoff game,
hmm
but I can't even be happy about the playoff game because they're not going to fire Ryan Day. And so, like, I'm like, of course, I'm going to root for Ohio State to beat Tennessee. I don't want to deal with the residuals of Tennessee beating Ohio State and there being the SEC Big Ten nonsense. And I never want to root for Ohio State to lose. But at the same time, Ohio State had like the number 4 recruiting class. Supposedly, they're talking to players in the transfer portal, but there's just like cloud of negativity around me because I'm just like, okay, cool. How is Ryan Day gonna fuck this up? Like, what is he gonna do? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is he gonna go and talk to the number one tackle that we need because there's no depth, and then he won't give him money and he's not gonna come? Is he not? Is he going to get the number one tackle, and then because he gets the number one tackle, he just won't fire the line coach who There are 5 players on the offensive line. Ohio State's losing 4 of them. He brought in a class of 3 players, and not that your freshmen are going to start, but he brought in 3 total players this year. You literally can't do that, especially when you're already missing depth. So like, is he not going to fire him? It's just like I literally can't find anything to be happy about with Ohio State right now, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I can at least pretend to be happy about the Yankees, right? Like the Yankees are also depressing, but like they did go to the World Series. They're making some moves or whatever. But like Ohio State, I'm literally just like anything that happens, I'm just waiting for that shoe to drop. Like, what is Ryan Day going to do to ruin?
I mean, like, what if they won the national championship?
I'll be happy then.
All right.
But I can't get to the next day because I just feel like he's going to do something stupid every single time.
Damn.
Every single time. Speaking of doing something stupid, Michigan hires Chip Lindsey as their offensive coordinator. He was the previous offensive coordinator at North Carolina. He sucks. He's probably better than what they had previously, so I will give them that. But Sharon Moore's Rolodex, not big, not a lot of names to call. And I think that's interesting because we don't have the roster analysis and things like that, but he has messed up the careers of multiple quarterbacks. Literally like Drake May, who was a first round pick, but his offense was so bad in Drake May's final year that people thought he wasn't a good quarterback anymore. And like they drafted him first round because they always draft quarterbacks first round, but like he easily could have like been eligible to be the number 1 pick and probably should have been the number 1 pick based on like some traditional kind of like how people view quarterbacks. And he slid a little bit because his offensive coordinator sucked. And he's going to get the chance, most likely, unless Michigan does something, to coach the number 1 player in the country. Whatever. This is not a show where we talk a lot about coaches, right? Like we don't pretend to be the most knowledgeable about coaches, but he sucks. Yeah.
It's not gonna be not for the especially after getting that recruit. What a step backwards.
Shouldn't do that. Purdue made a good hire, in my opinion. They hired Barry Odom from UNLV. UNLV was just in the Mountain West championship game. Maybe they were in the Mountain West championship game last year as well. I don't remember, but they're a pretty good program now, and they hadn't been that before he got there. And I'm just like, man, obviously someone has to lose, right? Someone has to get fired. But the Big Ten they've been making some pretty solid hires recently. Like I've got on here a lot of the head coaches I've liked, right? I liked Jonathan Smith. I like Barry Odom. It hasn't seemed to work out, but I originally liked Luke Fickell to Wisconsin. I liked Matt Rule to Nebraska. And right, obviously there's a chance that not all of these work out. Again, Luke Fickell to Wisconsin is not looking the best right now. But I think that's a pretty solid hire from Purdue. And they righted a wrong of hiring a first-time head coach to try to fix the mess that is Purdue football.
Especially after we were just doing so well, 2 years ago?
Yeah. The one thing that I would say, and I get money and coach's ego, I wouldn't have left UNLV for Purdue. Unless the money was just which, I mean, he was still making like $1 million or $2. So maybe he went from $2 million to $8 million or whatever. And that's a big jump. I'm not trying to say it's not. But you're in Las Vegas. You were 1 win away, essentially 1 or 2 wins away from 1 win away because you played in the conference championship game. You were 1 win away from making the playoffs at UNLV. You're in Las Vegas. Maybe it's too hot, but it's warm. They were paying you some sort of money. You were doing good, and you're going to go to Purdue to be the bottom of the Big Ten and eventually get fired in 3 years. Ultimately, it was our theme all summer. Someone has to lose these games. And I think Purdue is at a major disadvantage where you could argue that UNLV was at an advantage at its level. So, I don't know. All these coaches do it, right? They leave these smaller jobs for these bigger jobs, but the bigger jobs are shitty jobs. And it's just you maybe could have waited for a less shitty job. but it ain't my money. I'm something attracted him to the job, but I like to
It's got
win.
to be money.
Yeah, I like to win personally. And if I'm
Mm.
already a multi-millionaire, I just don't know that I'm just gonna jump at any job where like my record after 3 years is gonna be like 6-30 or something like that. Like, it's an
It's
odd choice, but a great,
it's
I
a
think great hire.
it's a big risk. It's a huge risk, but yeah, you're not wrong. It's a great hire, but a huge risk
Yeah,
for him at
yeah,
least.
yeah. Purdue, good job. You did what
Mhm.
you were supposed to do. Um, Nebraska promoted John Butler to DC. No idea who that is. Um, it's always interesting the promoting a guy to DC thing. We'll see how it works. Their defense took a slight step back this year, but it was still pretty good. They typically still have an above average defense. But if you all don't remember, or this is your first episode, or you don't follow, Nebraska, their defensive coordinator was hired by Florida State. So they needed to hire someone instead of going outside the family. They promoted John Butler, who has been there. I don't know exactly how long, but I know he's been there. I think he potentially was there before Matt Rule. I think he's one of those guys that's been there for a while. And then the last thing in our coaching update, Wisconsin hires Jeff Grimes as offensive coordinator. He was recently the offensive coordinator at Kansas. Um, this is one of those things where like I'm not going to pretend to know a lot about him. What I will say is Kansas used to have a really good offense. Their offensive coordinator went to Penn State, and their offense was not as good. It's a 1 year sample. They did right the ship eventually, right? Because Kansas went on to beat, like they're the reason they beat Colorado. They beat Iowa State. I think they beat somebody else. But when I was watching Kansas play, I can't that I thought he was super impressive. So
I didn't think he was that bad. At least I watched the Colorado game. He played really well in that game.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I'm not gonna make a declarative statement on him because I don't know. I just know that at least for the first 6 or 7 games, Kansas's offense looked like it took a huge step back. So
Mm.
we'll see. But Luke Fickle needs to get this one right because unfortunately, if he doesn't, Wisconsin's probably going to fire him. They,
Yeah,
they didn't fire their coach that went 8-4, 9-3 to go 6-6.
that's fair.
So I maybe I missed something, but I think between the last 2 weeks, I think we got most of the coaching hires. Nebraska's fully staffed. Michigan's fully staffed. I don't think they fired anyone on defense. USC is literally on fire. They lost 2 coaches, I believe, and they have a bunch of players entering the transfer portal. So we'll see what happens at USC, especially because like a lot of the coordinator stuff hasn't fully happened yet because some of these teams are in the playoffs and some of these jobs are opening up. Like I think there were not a whole lot of jobs I think that were going to pull big name coordinators, but like UNLV may pull a coordinator from somewhere. So that's a bigger job than some of the ones that were open, like App State and things like that. So we will try to keep you updated on the coaching stuff as that starts to pick up. But to be honest, we're probably not going to do too much around like um, anything that's not coordinated. Y'all do not want to sit here and hear us to pretend to know who someone's defensive line coach is. That's not why you listen.
It's
Like,
probably not gonna happen.
yeah, if it's somebody we know, like when USC hired their defensive line coach, I knew his name. He worked with Aaron Donald. We talked about that, but like, it's yeah. Like if USC replaces Matt Ince, who was their linebackers coach, with like just a traditional linebackers coach, we're not going to talk about it. I don't got nothing to say about that. We talked about Matt Ince because he was a former head coach, and I don't know if we said it on the show. I think we probably did, but we were 100% right when we said, "Oh, this guy took this job because he wants to be a head coach," and he was in that job for 8 months, if that, 8 or 9 months, and
Damn.
now he's a head coach. So that is the risk you take when you hire these sort of people. Hopefully, not hopefully, because I don't really care if USC is successful, but hopefully for them, Lincoln Riley knew that as easily as we knew that. So he was prepared to have to hire another linebackers coach immediately. I also think he's going to have to hire a defensive line coach. Probably. I think that guy goes back to the NFL, but who knows? We'll talk about that if that happens.
And more than likely will happen.
Yeah. Today's Wednesday. Why you all stealing out?
Well, because we've been playing well. We're top of the division. We got 10 wins.
Okay, that's fair.
I honestly also I just grabbed some stuff and put it on.
Okay, I was gonna say like typically like not that you don't wear it, but you had on the shirt and the hat. I'm like they don't play tonight. Like Wednesdays. Like, are we recording a whole day late? I be losing days sometimes. I be working. Like, damn.
No.
On Thursday.
No.
Heard you. In other news, in our traffic update, the Big Ten released its 2025 schedule. There's no way to talk about this. Like, I can't even I want to.
Oh, my eyes.
Yeah, no, for real.
My eyes.
Yeah, that is. I don't know how they would do it, right? Like, I get it, but also I really do want them to figure out a better way to do that. So I want to see if I can.
Penn State plays Oregon and Ohio State again.
I want to see, first of all,
Washington plays OSU.
Awfulness that we got to look at. But I want to see, since we are a video media. Oh, what the heck? Okay. Can I not? I don't really want to share my screen.
So why is this not working?
Well, this is bad podcasting. I'm trying to be a good podcaster and put it on the screen so people can see what we're talking about. But because I haven't been able to do that, now I'm bad podcasting. There we go. All right. You know what I mean? We're getting there. We're not lucky like some people. You know what I mean? We don't have an engineer in the back doing this for us. We are doing this ourselves. Look, we figured it out. We're a professional outfit, a semi-professional outfit. This grid's awful. I don't know how else they were supposed to put it into one. I feel like this is probably the best way to do it, but it's
Oregon doesn't have to play Ohio State.
Huh?
Oregon doesn't have to play Ohio State.
No, and yeah, the schedule thing is weird.
Texas, Georgia.
I don't think that's Georgia. I think that's Grambling.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. I'm pretty sure that's Grambling. And now I want to make sure, because I meant to look before we started, because if Ohio State played Texas and Georgia, that would be crazy. I think they do play Georgia at some point, but definitely not the same year that they play Texas. I'm pretty sure that is Grambling State.
Okay, yeah, okay, that makes more sense.
Very, very, very much stole that G from Georgia, or maybe Georgia stole it from Grambling, right? You never know, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing. So, Dante, I'm sure this grid hurts your eyes as much as I do. I also imagine that I know one of the games you're going to say because you just said it. But is there anything from this that piques your interest? And I will start with the one you already mentioned, because obviously Ohio State plays Texas week 1.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be very fun. I also don't know why Texas signed up to play Michigan and Ohio State, but I'm glad that they did.
Wait, what?
Wait, what?
Texas doesn't play Michigan.
No, they played
back to back.
Just in general, why they signed up for that.
Hey, I don't know. To prove something.
Hey, it don't matter for me. I'm happy about it.
Any other game that I'm interested in? Hmm,
So I think I don't know if
I'm not
maybe
sure.
it's to do with,
It's so much to look at. I don't.
yeah, it's hard. So Penn State plays Oregon, which I
Yeah,
find to be interesting,
that's a good one.
and that's a Big Ten championship game rematch.
Yeah.
Uh, Ohio State and Penn State play, which is interesting because they weren't supposed to be playing this year, and then they added in the two teams and changed the schedule, so they play. Uh, this one is at Penn State. It'll be very interesting to see if Penn State is able to finagle this to make this the whiteout game. But actually, no, sorry. This is not at Penn State.
No,
This
it's
was
not.
at Ohio State. It was at Penn State last year. Uh, so, but still, that game's happening again. Let's see what else is happening on here that is of value. This is not a value because they're going to get their ass kicked again. But Wisconsin plays Alabama again. Oh, this was interesting.
Oh,
Uh,
true.
I don't know how this happened, but
Wisconsin, Washington. I think that might be interesting.
yeah, yep. I don't know how this happened this year, but USC and UCLA is in rivalry week again. For whatever reason, USC played Notre Dame this year. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's like a rotating thing or if it was scheduled for. I don't know exactly how that happened, but they do play UCLA in the final week of the season. So all of the rivalry games are set, and hopefully it stays that way. Because the Notre Dame game was interesting, but like Big Ten teams should be playing their rivals during rivalry week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's interesting. It's out. I don't think anyone has like it's gonna be like this is not the best place to look at this and then kind of decide. But it doesn't look like anyone has as hard of a schedule as some of them had this year. Although I will say USC is going to be bad again next year. They have a potential to play a better Michigan State program, a 9-3 Illinois, a potentially better Michigan program, Notre Dame, Nebraska, Northwestern, who's always a fight, but they should absolutely win that game, Iowa, and Oregon. This is
Yeah.
not like if this is Ohio State schedule or if this is Oregon's schedule, this is not the toughest schedule. But the way that USC played this year, this is a tough
Mm-hmm.
game.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon is probably going 12-0.
Illinois, actually, Illinois, Michigan, Notre Dame, back to back to back is pretty rough.
Yeah, there's a bye week in between, but
Yeah.
that's still not a great. Wisconsin has a crazy stretch. Look at this. They play Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, Oregon. 4 straight games. No bye week.
And then a bye week into Washington, which is still rough after the bye.
And then they play Indiana, which could be good again.
Mm-hmm.
That yeah, oof. Luke Fickle,
Mm-hmm.
you might be getting fired, my boy. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to tell you. I'm sorry to that man. I am sorry to that man. Um, Anything else? Yeah, I was saying Oregon is probably going to go 12-0 again, especially because they don't play Ohio State. Obviously, they beat
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State this year, but not having to play Ohio State is a positive. Although we do need to see how much changes with Oregon's roster and how good their young quarterback is because they won't have that seventh year senior for the second year in a row after going from Bo Nix to Dylan Gabriel.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting for those of you who want to actually look at this a little bit further, or for those of you who are listening to this on the podcast medium and not on YouTube, and you cannot see what we're looking at, you can just find us on the Big Ten website, The Grid. You should definitely check it out, but be prepared to.
Yeah, it's crazy looking. Like my lord.
Yeah, I can't think of how else they would have done it, but
Mm,
it's tough.
that hurt.
Yeah, but we're back. We're out of it. So we are going to take a quick break here. I think we'll maybe get into the the Big Ten championship. We'll get into the playoffs a little bit, and then we'll get out of here.
Yep.
So we will be right back after the ads. Yes, we will. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Land Grant Podcast Network's I-80 football show, where we are taking a road trip down I-80. And thankfully, we're not actually taking one because this weather sucks. Has it snowed in?
It is. It
It's
just did today. It
okay.
has already, but it did today a little bit. It was just a tad. Apparently, only in my area, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We are. So, one thing I'm learning about living in New York is that nobody knows anything about Ohio or where it's at. I get this, like, when I tell people that it snows more in Ohio than it does in New York, they're like, oh, wow, I thought it'd be like warm all the time. I'm like, where do you think
Where you
Ohio
going?
is?
Yeah.
And also, I know we've already done the whole weather thing, so we don't need to do that again. But
Mm-hmm.
like, there is a difference versus being on a lake versus being on an ocean. It's why Buffalo is fucking snowing all the time, but
Yeah.
New York City isn't. And New York City is basically an island. Buffalo is off of a lake. One of them's colder. It's Buffalo. I don't know where they think Ohio is. I think that's always interesting, but it has not snowed yet.
That makes no sense. That man LeBron James terrorized that city for almost a decade, and they don't know where Ohio is. Yeah. All right.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, so I don't know what to tell him,
Just
but yeah, I think that's funny that everyone just like doesn't understand what the weather in Ohio is like. But yeah, it hasn't snowed in New York yet.
mm.
It was raining a lot today, which is crazy because I'm like, it's December, this should be snow. I'm not. Well, I should be mad because of global warming, but I'm not mad that it was just rain because it rained. So if it was snowing like that, it'd be crazy. But yeah, we are not actually road tripping right now. Although, man, I need a road trip so bad. I hate not having a car. I hate not having a car. Like, and I
I
love to
believe.
drive. I know that that's for some people that's weird, but like, if I had, like, we're not coming to Ohio for Christmas, but if we were, and I had the time, I literally just be like, I'm just about to go to Charlotte to go see my best friend. Like, Zara, you can come if you want to. I know you don't like road trips, but I just need to drive. I haven't driven my car in so long.
I just need to. I just
I'm
need
just
to.
about to, I'm just about to take a little 6 hour trip to down 77.
I just need to sit behind the wheel for some odd reason.
I'm saying, bro, it's so weird. It's so weird to
I
not
can't.
drive.
I can't
And
do it.
and it's just
I
like
hate
never
driving,
drive.
but
I
I
get that, but
cannot
I
drive.
haven't driven since July.
Yeah. I also hate not being able to drive if I don't have.
No, June, Father's Day. I haven't driven since Father's Day. It's been 6 months,
Sheesh.
right? That's crazy. But yeah, so let's get into the Big Ten championship game. Do you have any thoughts? Did you get a chance to watch it?
I did. I actually watched it on stream. Um, if I remember correctly, because now it's been a couple of days for me, and I didn't go back and rewatch it, so it's been a while. But it was a sloppy. It was pretty sloppy for a bit there.
Yeah, nobody played any defense, which was interesting.
Also true. Also
We
true.
we predicted that it was going to be a closer game, like it was the score was going to be less than Ohio State
Hmm.
and Oregon. It wasn't. It was 45-37. Like they just
I
doing
think.
whatever they wanted. They just
Yeah.
doing whatever they wanted to. It was
They was turning the
interesting.
ball over a lot. My gosh.
Yeah, it was interesting because I wasn't sure if this was going to happen or not. So I don't think I said it, but I was wondering like if Oregon was going to do what they did against Ohio State. Like Oregon is not always a big play offense, but then against Ohio State, it did like go deep a lot and things like that. And they did that against Penn State. Tez Johnson was the player, first wide receiver to ever win Big Ten player of the whatever. What am I trying to say? To win player of the game for the Big Ten championship. That's what I'm trying to say. I
Okay.
lost
Okay.
all of my words. Losing your words when you're podcasting is not a good thing.
Like, Lord have mercy.
That is not what you want. Um, but yeah, so It was a good game. Dylan Gabriel had 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Drew Aller had 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, which is something that I would start to be a little worried about if I was Penn State, because again, his whole thing was that he doesn't throw interceptions, and now in big games he's starting to throw interceptions. But I mean, both teams could really run whenever they wanted to, but Penn State really could run whenever they wanted to. Katron Allen went 14 for 124. Nicholas Singleton went 10 for 105, which makes it even crazier that Ohio State couldn't run on Oregon. I don't know what the fuck was going on there, but Oregon had 2 running backs go for over 80 yards as well. You know, it was, I mean, Penn State ran for, and Drew Allen ran for 54 yards. Penn State ran for 297 yards on Oregon.
So pretty much 300 yards. Wow.
Yeah, they ran for, they were, if Drew Allen got sacked, I'm sure he did, they were a sack or 2 away, essentially, from 300 yards.
Yeah, that's usually a recipe for winning.
Yeah.
They just gave up those two interceptions. Was the key.
Basically, yeah.
The key to that.
It was.
Yeah.
And Oregon didn't turn the ball over at all. No interceptions, and they fumbled once, but they didn't lose it. So they didn't turn the ball over at all. Then the other thing that I was going to say, and it's crazy, like, so Oregon, Tez Johnson, again, he won Big Ten. He won the player of the game. He had 11 receptions for 181 yards. Dylan Gabriel threw for 283. So 5 other players combined for 100 yards, and he had 181. He was a one-man show. Tez Johnson is also the wide receiver who has like faced some injuries and things like that. So him being back is big.
It was really big.
And in their playoff run, especially because we'll get to this, they have the hardest path in the playoffs. So they're going to need Tez Johnson. Yes, overall, it was a good game. I didn't get a chance to watch all of the championship games. This was the night game, right?
Yes, I believe.
Yeah, my friend was in town for her birthday, so I didn't get to watch
8 p.m.
But I watched the majority of this game, at least the majority of the second half. It was a fun game. I'm like taking Ohio State out the picture, because Ohio State should have been in this game, right? Taking Ohio State out the picture, I'm glad this game happened, right? It
was good.
Games, 2 of the better teams in the conference, and they never got a chance to play each other because they weren't on the schedule. Again, we already mentioned they'll play each other in 2025, but with Ohio State being coached by a loser, we did the game. We're going to save most of our analysis for the actual playoffs for next week, because it's not happening this weekend, and we want to make that relevant to when the games are happening. But I do think that Oregon should be concerned about giving up 297 yards in some of the teams that they may have to play. Their defense has never been this bad, and Penn State does not have that good of an offense typically, especially running the ball. So, but I mean, they get like 3 weeks off, so I think that maybe
they're
not what they want, because their next game maybe against Ohio State, but they have some time to figure that out to get healthy. So,
they've also shown that they can stop the run against teams that are usually good at running the ball. So,
tell me about it. I couldn't imagine what game you're talking about. The funny thing is, like, Oregon's been run on multiple times, and then Ohio State just couldn't run the ball. I'm like, all right, it's just us. It's just us. Whatever.
It just might be.
I won't talk about Ohio State right now. Do you have any other thoughts from this game?
No, it was just an exciting game to watch. I was playing. I finally learned how to bring it in my team builder to college football. So I've been doing that, and we had the game up, and it was an exciting game.
Yeah, for sure. What was I gonna say? I was gonna say, so I do think it's funny, and this is not to be disparaging, because if Oregon wins the national championship, I'll be happy for them. I have never really had beef with Oregon. I just think their fans are annoying. And my biggest thing is, like, you are so annoying to have never won something. If you win the national championship, you'll have won something. I give that to you. I have no beef. Oregon's a cool program. But I will say, I do think like a lot is going on with Oregon being 13-0. And I'm just like, this was so expected. Like maybe you thought Ohio State was going to win, but like them being a good team this year was so expected. They did everything right that they're supposed to do. Now it's just about if they can finish, right? If they can capitalize, if they can beat Ohio State or Tennessee, if they can beat maybe Texas, whoever, if they can get to the national championship game, and we'll see. But this is 13 games in. This is the storybook season for Oregon, and Oregon. I think I don't have the stat fully memorized, but I think Oregon would be the first time champion since 1947. So like every other team that's won a championship since then had won at some point. Like they would be the first team that has never won a championship to win one since like 1947.
Oh
So
my goodness.
if Ohio State's not going to win it, I do want it to be a Big Ten team as long as it's not Michigan, and they're obviously not going to win it.
Yeah.
So I will.
Even though Big Ten got one last year.
Yeah. I guess. Uh, I guess they got one, not me. Um, yeah. So the one thing that does suck, and we'll talk about this more, and it was predicted because they said that they weren't going to change the bracket, but I really wanted Ohio State to be out of Oregon's side of the bracket,
Yeah.
and not a competitive thing. Ryan Day's a loser. He's probably going to lose to Tennessee. Ryan Day's also Ohio State's also one of the only teams that I think can beat Oregon. Doesn't mean they're going to, but it can. But from a Big Ten perspective, if Ohio State was on the other side of the bracket, there's a chance that we could have gotten 3 Big Ten teams in the semifinals. But now Ohio State has to play Oregon, and so only one of them is going to make it. So, whatever. Ohio State has bigger things to worry about.
It's like a double whammy because it's like a fu to Oregon and also to the Big Ten to put possibly Ohio State that early against another top 10 Big Ten team, and like you just knock out another Big Ten team kind of early, whether it's Ohio State or Oregon.
Yeah, I think that kind of sucks.
Yeah, it does.
But it'll be good to see that rematch. So we'll see what comes out of that. But of course, Ohio State is led by a perennial loser, so it is no guarantee that we're even going to get that rematch. Because
even then,
he needs to handle business against Tennessee, which we will talk about next week.
Yep.
What is going on? There we go. Okay, so speaking of next week, speaking about the playoff, the bracket is here. I'm sure at this point, because this show comes out on Thursday, you all are tired of hearing about the bracket, but we ain't got a chance to talk about it, so you're stuck. You got to hear us talk about it. I think the bracket's very interesting. I'm trying to see if I can actually, because like, why does the see, this is the problem with the college football playoffs also like doing a top 25, because they're showing me the top 25 when they know damn well I just want to see the bracket. Like, don't be stupid. What we want, why we're here. We want the bracket. I don't understand why we're doing this. But while I'm pulling this up, do you have any? I know you've seen the bracket. Do you have any initial thoughts?
I actually haven't seen the full bracket.
How have you not seen the bracket? All right, well, hold on. Oh, that's not what I want. And then everybody be putting up the bracket with videos and stuff like that. Don't nobody want that. We just want to see straight bracket. Like, stop playing. So Oregon, of course, is the number 1 seed. They have a bye. This is the bracket. That's ugly. Oregon, of course, is the number 1 seed. Georgia is the number 2 seed. I think the most interesting thing about the bracket, and we won't stick on this long because this is not a Big Ten topic, is that and I think they were smart for this, but I didn't. That they didn't force Clemson into one of the byes because Clemson was not one of the better teams. Clemson is the 12 seed, and so therefore the buys went to Arizona State and to Boise,
Okay.
which is not what anyone expected, if we're being completely honest.
Mm.
And I think that is interesting because for me, um, that's what should have happened based on the games of the field. But when you say it's Arizona State, Boise, or it's Clemson, what do you think is going to happen, right? Like you're typically going to say they're going to jump Clemson, they're going to jump the ACC. That team is going to get the bye, and they didn't do that. So I was happy of them for like having a backbone because
Yeah, me
I,
too. Me too. Me too.
I, I did not expect them to have a backbone. Now that we finally have it on the screen, Texas comes in at 5, Penn State comes in at 6. Uh, Notre Dame comes in at 7. Ohio State comes in at 8. Those four teams, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Ohio State, they have the first round. They're hosting the first round games. And then you have Tennessee at 9. You have Indiana at 10. You have SMU at 11. And you have Clemson at 12. Before we get into the Big Ten of it, do you have any thoughts on the whole bracket?
Besides agreeing with you about having Boise State and Arizona State having the bye, that's about it. I think this. I'm not. I like it. Besides in the fact that we talked about Tennessee and Ohio State being on the Oregon side of the bracket. Other than that, I think this. I think this is correct. I saw a lot of Alabama fans being upset. I agree that Alabama doesn't belong here in the playoffs. So they did. I think this is. I think this is correct.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I understand why they didn't, but they, in my opinion, if we're just doing like matchup things, right?
Hmm.
They could have made Notre Dame 8 because they have the weaker schedule. They
Hmm.
could have made Ohio State 7 and
Yeah,
justified it by saying they have two top 5 wins.
I
And
still.
then
I still
instead
wouldn't
of
want
doing
that because that's
instead
going against Indiana.
I know you gotta let me finish.
Hmm.
Instead of having Indiana at 10, you could have flipped them with SMU, and you could have justified that by saying SMU made a conference championship game and Indiana didn't. And
Hmm.
then you would get Indiana Penn State, which is in conference, but they didn't play this year.
Yeah.
You would get SMU Ohio State, you would get Notre Dame, Tennessee, and then that would lead into Ohio State potentially playing Georgia. That would lead to the winner of Notre Dame, Tennessee playing Oregon. Those are all games that we didn't have before, and all of those rankings could have been justified, and it's just minor tweaks.
Yeah.
But whatever. This is what they did. It's still good games. It just again from the Big Ten side of it, and this is a Big
Yeah.
Ten show. It sucks to have Ohio State
Have to
Oregon on
potentially.
the same side of the bracket and so early when it probably
Yeah, I
is.
guess that's when you run the risk of having four your teams from your conference in the playoffs.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Because actually, no, that doesn't happen to anyone else. It's only us.
Well, nobody else has four.
You're right. Yeah, true. Fair enough. Fair enough. So let's
Mhm.
actually go through the games. Again, we won't. We're not going to break them down because there's a whole another week. But just as a conversation, Ohio State plays Tennessee. They're hosting Tennessee. That is a very interesting game. That is a game that Ohio State absolutely has to win. They cannot lose to an SEC team, especially a team that's not that good. I wonder, I don't think they would, but if Ohio State loses that game, I wonder if they'd fire Ryan there. That is still hanging over his head.
That would be interesting.
He he needs to get to that Oregon game. Um,
Mhm.
if you lose to Oregon again, you lose in a similar fashion. I won't forgive you, but I think some people may forgive you and say Oregon's just a better team. They're
Yeah.
14-0, whatever, but you can't lose to Tennessee. Clemson, Texas. That's going to be a disgusting game. Um, I have no interest in that at all. Do you have any interest in Clemson, Texas?
Not really, because it's Clemson. So
Yeah, Indiana, Notre Dame. That's going to be fun.
that's gonna be fun.
That's going to be really fun, and they're both in the state of Indiana. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm sure there's some history there, of course, but that's going to be interesting. And then SMU, Penn State. I want to ask you a question, if you can answer it as bland as possible,
Okay.
because we'll save our analysis for next week. Everyone is saying that Penn State has the easiest path. Do you think Penn State is just going to dog walk SMU, or do you think people who think they are?
No, because Penn State went up against teams that can run the ball, and both of these teams, whether you beat SMU and get to Boise State, are great at the run. They struggled and lost to Ohio State. They lost to Oregon that way. Like they gave up a lot of running, and so no, I don't think it's the easy. I don't think it's like a dog walk. I would say Texas, maybe, or Clemson. I don't know. I think that route is probably the easiest.
Yeah, I
Or
would
the
agree.
Arizona route, or like whatever you want to call it. Like that side of the bracket is probably the easiest.
Or even maybe even Georgia, because although Georgia Georgia's
True.
Georgia lost its quarterback, so it's not
Hmm.
necessarily. But if you're just looking like going in,
Yeah.
um, Georgia would beat Indiana because they would kill them on the line of scrimmage, like Ohio State and Michigan did,
Yeah.
and they would most likely beat Notre Dame too. I I'm glad we're on the same page. We won't go any further than that until next week, but a lot of people have just looked at it, and I think they see the names
Hmm.
and they're not actually watching the games, and they're just like, "Oh, Penn State has it super easy." And honestly, I know Clemson just beat SMU, but
Yeah.
SMU I think was a little like starstruck, not of Clemson, of just like
The
making it so
moment.
far, and they
Yeah.
had a bad half. I would rather play Clemson than SMU.
That's fair. That's why I
So
was like Texas. I'm pretty sure Texas is gonna beat Clemson.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the bracket again. You have Oregon one, You have Oregon one, Penn State six, Ohio State is eight, Indiana's 10. There are four teams in the first iteration of the bracket, and that is great for the Big Ten. The Big Ten had a good year, and the best part about the Big Ten having a good year is all of the SEC teams in here are beatable, especially without Georgia,
Mhm.
especially without Georgia having losing its quarterback. There is no reason the Big Ten as a conference with Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, and I'll even include Indiana. The Big Ten should win the national championship this year. Most likely should be Oregon, but
Probably.
and I hate to say this because I have no faith in Ryan Day. But whoever wins the Ohio State Oregon game, which again most likely will be Oregon, is who I think is probably going to win the national championship, barring any sort of injury or anything like that.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'll give Ryan Day as far as why I think he still has a chance is each of these games he's going to have multiple weeks to game plan, and Ryan Day has proven to be really good in one-off scenarios when he's had a week or two to game plan because he does have an offensive mind. His biggest problem is he's probably going to lose one of these games because his kicker sucks, as we
Oh, true.
a lot of games because our kickers suck. I
True.
think we were in if our kicker could kick a 55-yarder or whatever, I think we would have beat Oregon. I think we were in that range where like when the slide happened,
Yeah.
could have kicked if we had a real kicker, right? So um, but I think I'll leave it there. If I keep talking, we're gonna stumble into more in
Yeah.
depth.
Yeah. 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 Let's go.
Um, okay, so is that it? That's it. That's the
Yeah.
show.
That's it. Yeah.
Uh,
That's it.
yeah, I was making the show plan. I was like, man, we don't have a lot to talk about if we're not going to break down these games because bowl
Yeah.
season hasn't started. We'll talk about bowl season next week. The playoffs aren't here. We already did. We already did um, we already did the Big Ten awards. We did that last week.
Yeah.
All Americans aren't here, so yeah,
Yeah.
that's the show. We'll get into our pit stops. Do you have a pit stop?
I do not.
Okay. Well, as a reminder, this is the I-80 Football Show where we travel down I-80. Our pit stop is our chance where we get to stop and we get to talk about something that is not Big Ten related, that is not football related. Sometimes it's not even sports related. This one for me today is sports related, and mine is that the Yankees lost Juan Soto
Yep.
to the Mets.
Mm.
He got a 15-year,
750.
700
I think it
and
was 700.
something crazy.
I think it was 750 mil.
What is 765?
765. Okay.
Yeah, it's 15 years, 765.
mm.
I have some thoughts about this, right? I am torn because I see this two ways. I hate that the Yankees lost him. It seemed like they offered him a 16-year, 760. So it's not that they weren't battling; they did
Yeah,
not come cheap, right? The Mets just won out. They were willing to give a little bit more yearly, and it sounds like a lot of what he was saying is that he was legitimately just going to take the highest offer. There are now like stupid rumors going around saying that one of the reasons he didn't sign is that like the Mets gave him his family free access to a suite,
oh,
and the Yankees wouldn't give his family free access to a suite, like a
okay,
free suite in Yankee Stadium. And Yankees GM was like, one, I don't think that had anything to do with it, but he was like, also, which is it's true. He was basically like, Juan Soto's not our only big money player.
nope,
We didn't give
that's
Aaron Judge a suite. We didn't give John Carlos Stanton a suite. We didn't give Garrett Cole a suite. We didn't give Alex Rodriguez a suite. Derek Jeter didn't get a suite. Mariano Rivera, we've never done that. And he's like, basically, he's like, we've never done it, so we stuck to what we've to our history and how we handle it. And
right.
also, it is a slippery slope because like the Mets may build, right? But as of right now, Juan Soto is the only like really, really like big ticket player on the Mets because they're probably going to lose Pete Alonso. And if y'all don't follow baseball that much, sorry for all the baseball talk, but like they could do that, right? Like this is the most expensive player in their history. They
Yeah,
say we need you to change the Mets. We're trying to build something here. Here's this money. Here's a suite. You can do all this stuff. The Yankees would have to answer to Derek Jeter didn't. Again, all the people that I named,
a
right?
lot of
They
people
didn't
didn't
get
get that.
that. And Aaron Judge, who is the captain of the Yankees and is also on a big money contract, says, "Well, where's mine?"
Right.
So, but I agree with Brian Cashman that I don't think that had anything to do with it. But all these little rumors and things start to come out. I know you're not a Yankees fan, and I don't know how much you follow baseball. I know you follow it a little bit, but
Yeah.
I think for me, I just feel like I'm torn because Juan Soto is definitely a generational player, truly to the word generational. And I hate saying the word generational. He is truly one of those.
No, he is. He
But
is.
15 years, 765, a contract till he's 41. That's that's hard. That's hard. That like eventually like
Seems kind of normal. I
Shohei
don't know.
no, like the Shohei Otani didn't get that.
Mm.
Like I mean, like he got a lot of money, and his contract was 10 years, not
Oh,
15.
not 15. Fair enough.
Like it's
Mhm.
and he's
I
he's
don't
won
know.
MVP
Athletes, these athletes are playing much
and a
longer now. So
designated
he's.
player. Yeah, I mean, I listen. If the Yankees would have done it, I wouldn't have been mad at them. I'm not doing that like revisionist history thing where people
Hmm.
where it's like, oh, we didn't need him anyway. No, we needed him. We did need him. But
Hmm.
like when you do have the other side of it where it's like, okay, Juan Soto didn't win the MVP. Aaron Judge did, right? Like you do still have him if you can take that money and you split it across other stars.
Hmm.
It's not general. Like you can't get scrubs, but you get other stars,
Hmm.
and you fix the pitching. Maybe you can still be a good team.
Hmm.
All of this, I think, hinges on the Yankees actually doing that. They did make a good signing with a pitcher who is. They signed a pitcher to an 8-year deal for 200 million, Max Fried or something like that. I
Hmm.
follow baseball, but not enough to know a lot about him. But I read his stats and some of the things that he's done. He has won a Cy Young and some other things. He's been a multi-time All-Star. So like they're starting to make some splashes. So yeah, it definitely sucks to lose him, but
Yeah,
God, 15 years, 765 is
that's a lot. That's probably going to be restructured, but man, that's a lot.
yeah. I don't think they
15
ever
years.
restructure baseball contracts. They do
You
that in
might
a
be
lot of
right.
other sports, but
You
I
might
don't.
be right about that.
I think that's almost
You're probably
basically
right about that.
guaranteed.
Damn. Then never
And this is
mind.
the craziest part about it. They put in escalators to where it can get to an 800 million contract. How the fuck do you escalate 765 million?
Mhm.
You got $750 million and you put escalators in the contract.
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, I mean,
Here comes the
it's like it's
money.
like
Here we
the
go.
only the one thing that I'll say about this though, I went to a Yankees game and I went in the wrong gate. And so it took me longer to get into the gate. And they were giving out a Juan Soto basketball jersey.
Mm-hmm.
But it was obviously Juan Soto, but it was basketball jersey. It was fire, super fire. Sorry that I didn't get it, but I convinced myself that it was okay that I didn't get it because there was a chance that he didn't resign. And now I'm like, well, I'm glad I don't have this baseball jersey that I think is fire, but I wouldn't. Basketball jersey. It's a basketball jersey. Basketball jersey that I would never wear because he's on the freaking Mets. But yeah, I'm a little salty. I will say, if the Yankees are smart, and I don't know if they are because they're a Ryan Day coached baseball team, their manager is the same person. I think that they can make the best out of this situation, and they can get
I think they can
a good roster. But it was fun to have Juan Soto for a year.
I bet it was.
That is all I'll say. But as always, that's it. We out of here. We're finally under an hour. We probably will not be under an hour next week once we're talking about bowl games and playoffs. So we'll give you the 30 minutes that we never give you. And as always, thank you for listening. If you're listening to this show in podcast form and you like YouTube, you can find this show and the Power 2 podcast on Instagram, but on YouTube at Get Defensive Sports Network. Even if you're always going to listen to this in the podcast platform, if you could go to that, because everyone has a YouTube, and give it a like, a follow, a subscribe, something like that, trying to build a little thing out there.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Give us a follow on Instagram. Appreciate that. And we will catch you next week.
All right.